Victoria rez Royo and Vicente Arlandis. And they are presenting under the title Learning to Be Together, Experimental Communities. Their presentation relates to an extended understanding of choreography and explores democratic ways of being together. Victoria is a performing arts researcher based in Berlin and Madrid. She is co-director of the MA in Performing Arts Practice and Visual Culture, likewise in Madrid, associate professor in Aesthetics and Theory of the Arts at the Faculty of Philosophy of Zaragoza University, and invited teacher to BA and MA programs at the Performing Arts in Poland, Germany, Finland, Chile, Peru, and Costa Rica, among others. And may I continue? She's a member of the Research Association Artea and of the Virtual Archive of Performing Arts. She has devised and coordinated research contexts such as artistic migrations, expanded theatricalities, rethinking spectatorships, There is No Other Poetry Than Action, and many others at art centers like Reina Sofia Museum and Matadero in Madrid. She is editor of publications, apologies for my pronunciation, Componer el Mural, To Be Continued, and Practice and Research. Vicente Arlandis instead is a choreographer and performing artist and teacher with a master's degree in arts production in UPV, Valencia, and a master's degree in performance practice from APAS, Brussels. From 2001, he has been working with Sandra Gomez in the Los Que Puedan collective, where they have produced numerous artistic projects such as the series of Corones, thank you very much, Tragedia de los Comunes, and Performance Municipal. He has imparted workshops about his artistic practice in spaces such as DOC in Stockholm, Festival Leo in Valencia, Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, Universidad de Sevilla, and Facultad de BBAA in Bilbao. He has collaborated with numerous artists such as Hipólito Patón, Miguel Ángel Martínez, Lisbeth Rubén, Macarena Recuerdo, Jean Fabre, and others. And at the moment he is participating in the collective project Taller Placer, together with Maridi Martin, Miguel Angel Martin, and Paula Miralles. The floor, space, and time of us, we are yours.
Thank you. First of all, we'd like to thank Lena and Nico for the invitation. We are really very, very pleased to be here, to have the opportunity to share our research and our concerns in this context that so explicitly fosters freedom and experimentation in the arts. We would also like to thank Siri and Deita for the wonderful coordination of all practical matters and their great help in every respect coordinating this, the Theatre Academy for hosting this event, and all of you for attending this proposal and participating in it. We have been invited to present a performance lecture on researching choreography, or more concretely on expanded choreography. It was also suggested to include audience participation and to experiment with the formats. We have decided to answer to this extremely interesting invitation, challenging also, that's why it is interesting, proposing an experiment that links to our concerns in our respective research processes, both in relation to the current research project I'm involved in, that is called Body and Democracy, and Vicente with at least two of his works, The Tragedy of the Commons and What Happens When Nothing Happens. All of these, they are pieces of research in which we are working in a transversal way between social political theory and notions of theatricality, corporeality, choreography, and in which we are devising and studying ways of intervening and in social reality by means of an expanded understanding of theatrical and choreographic practices. In relation to all that, to all these parameters, our proposal for today is based on a very, very simple minimum gesture, which is to redirect, if we consider this could be something, a similar dispositif to a theater. There is audience and there is here a stage. Our proposal is to redirect attention from attention being drawn to the stage towards the audience, towards this other space, and to observe which are the choreographic and social dynamics that are always happening there among us, but that usually remain unnoticed. What is the defining action, or one of the most clear defining actions of the audience? This is the applause. The applause is constituted both by inertias, conventions, spontaneous gesture, unconscious or unreflexive actions. And we think that there in the applause, there lies a great potential to observe, study and intervene in the dynamics of consensus and dissensus, of agreement and disagreements, the mechanics of contagion, adhesion, resistance, also the possibility of the emergence somehow of something that we could call a collective identity among many other questions. And I think all these dynamics and all these mechanics have something in common, which is that they are exclusively or mostly explicitly based on body processes. So where we can observe corporeal, kinesthetic, empathic features of our collective being together. So this is the proposal. In this talk we are not proposing a format of just knowledge transmission, something, so some ideas that we have clearly created that we are transmitting to you, but rather we propose an experiment that we are an experiment to accomplish together that will be the basis for an individual, both individual and collective reflection about what could be called expanding social choreography.
So, how does it work? It's very simple. We're going to applaud for 28 minutes. This is our proposal. This applause is obviously not an answer to our proposal. This applause is not for us. This applause is the collective experiment that we propose to all of us. And why 28 minutes? First, we have calculated the total number of presentations, the closing of each panel, and an average duration. And we have estimated that in these 2 days, we will be applauding for 28 minutes. So we have decided to put it in one single block, all this clapping of the 2 days of conference together, and to observe and to experience it in itself. Second, 28 minutes, we think it's a significant amount of time to allow for a meaningful experience and an interesting involvement in the dynamics we are researching. In this applause, what we do is we eliminate many of its conventions. The cause or reason to applaud, its customary duration, its relative spontaneity, its unidirectional character, and the implied affirmative and supportive gestures towards something we have witnessed before. We keep its very basics, clapping together for a while, and this will allow, we hope, to focus attention on the basic feature of our corporeal ways of being together.
But before engaging in the applause, we will dedicate some minutes to share with you a small glossary of terms that might offer some clues for the experience of applauding. So the idea now with the glossary is not to guide the experience, not to explain the experience, how could we? This glossary is there just to offer you some concepts, some anecdotes, some ideas, that might resonate with your very diverse, multiple and complex ways of observing and participating in this applause. So we propose also the format of the glossary for many reasons, because alphabetic order avoids a fixed hierarchy among the terms, so that everyone can decide for herself which terms are relevant for her personal perception and reflections, and also because even in its openness of a glossary, it can help maybe to the emergence of a common horizon of reflection.
So the first term is applause. The applause is a generally collective reaction of variable direction of clapping as a sign of approval or celebration. The fundamental action of the applause is clapping hands, but sometimes it affects the whole body, including kicking on the floor, shouting hurrahs or bravos or whistles and a wide range of inarticulate sounds. It is usually understood as a general expression of the mood of the audience as a unitary subject in relation to the event or situation it has witnessed. Second term, behavioral science. In his book From Anxiety to Method in Behavioral Sciences, Jacques Devereaux explains the case of Ariel Elvin, an anthropologist who, while developing his research on primitive sexuality, fell in love with and married to a Gond girl of Central India of the society he was studying. Although in his ethnological account he never mentioned his personal love experience, according to Devereaux, these are the very source of his deep insights and remarkable knowledge. These and other cases lead Devereaux to claim that the most fundamental data of behavioral science come precisely from the examination of what happens in the observer and not in the object of study. While studying, it is not necessary to go until the extreme of a love and sexual relation to understand that empathy in any interaction fosters, he says, friendship, affective generosity, and scientific creativity.
Clack. Clack is the name given to the group of people hired to applaud in operas, dance, and theatre pieces to influence the rest of the audience towards the approval of the show. There are thousands of anecdotes at the Bolshoi Theatre, the Royal Opera House in London, Vienna, New York, etc., of the power of the claqueurs, who, far from just obediently cheering up the audience, also dedicate themselves to extortions and blackmailing of theatre directors and stars, threatening to sabotage the show by clapping in the wrong moments, hissing and whistling, jeering and discrediting the performance. The great power of influence of an even small group of people on the mood of the whole audience is confirmed by its recurrent use by politicians, from Emperor Nero hiring soldiers to read his speeches until today with, for example, according to the CIA report, President Trump hiring 40 people cheering for him in a discourse at the CIA institutions on the 23rd of January, now this year.
Conformity. In 1951, social psychologist Solomon Asch conceived an experiment to examine the extent to which pressure from other people could affect one's perceptions. In a group of 5 students, only one was a real subject. All the others were accomplices who had been instructed to give incorrect answers. Asch told him he was studying visual perception and that his task was to decide which of the 3 lines on the right card was the same length as the one on the left card. The task was very simple and the correct answer was obvious. The students had to give one at a time they answered aloud. To Asch's surprise, 37 of the 50 subjects conformed themselves to the obviously erroneous answer given by the other group members at least once. The group pressure implied by the expressed opinion of other people can lead to modification and distortion, effectively making you see almost anything.
Contagion. Contagion in the performing arts theory refers to a process of transmitting and triggering in others emotional, affective, energetic, and rhythmic reactions that are physically articulated without the possibility of control and without intervention of the intellect. According to Erika Fischer-Lichte, contagion is characterized by a strong performative power that pushes the power to an experience of liminality. This liminality both referring to the moment of bodily transformation caused by this emotional infection and to the forces that are irradiated by someone affecting others around her, creating links and putting them in a state of in-between. Interdependence. Dance, before getting fixed on paper with choreographic writing at the beginning of the 18th century, was practiced, according to Susan Leigh Foster, as a flux of adjustment and readjustment among the present bodies, organizing the frame in a frame of interdependence. Once dance is written and set on paper, the body assumes now choreography as an abstract law of movements to be executed and realized in a void space. Dance then, from then on, dependent on previous choreographic writing now, is understood, according to Foster, as a virtuosic exhibition, removing the dancer from the fabrication of an intercorporeal and intersubjective space that is removing the dancer from bodies in mutual interdependence. Mirror neuron, imitation of behavior, can have a literal neurological explanation, such as Vittorio Gallese stated in 1990. With his discovery of the so-called mirror neurons, which are responsible for contagious actions such as laughter or yawn. In the cortex, mirror neurons are activated not only when the subject performs an action, but also when observing someone performing this action. Mirror neuron then suggests that we do not first see and then react, but that we are constantly rehearsing what we see. Mirror neurons discovered a kind of physical empathy that fosters social bonds and that has been understood by many as the a priori condition to lead a social existence.
Social choreography. Andrew Hagett's most cited passage. If the body I dance with and the body I work and walk with are one and the same, I must necessarily entertain the suspicion that all of the body's movements are, to a greater or lesser extent, choreographed. It refers to two relevant questions. The body is the fundamental basis that allows the existence of a continuum along social, ideological, aesthetic realms. And social choreography is not just a metaphor or representation of a political order, but its enactment. Choreography has immanently a political significance, not in relation to an already explicited ideology, but as an structuring model of an effective organization of society. Sound space. Theatre, in spite of its etymological origin of theatron, space arranged for looking, it has always been an auditorium, and space arranged also for listening. In a perceptual plane, sounds work like odors. The body is defenseless before them, as it's impossible to close our ears, unlike our eyes. This implies that, regarding aurality, the limits of the body, blur and sounds are not just recognized as external elements that enter the auditory system, but they are directly perceived as a bodily process of assimilation of sound.
Standing Man protest. On the 18th of June 2013, in the frame of the Gezi protests in Istanbul, and up to that moment, unknown man, Erdem Gündüz, stayed for hours on the side of the Gezi Park, looking to the audience of the image of Ataturk at the Ataturk Cultural Center. He stayed there for hours just standing, looking at there. He limited himself really to stand there silently, without placards, without doing anything apart from being there standing. In its simplicity, his presence was immediately understood as a clear form of protest. Accompanying him, leading them, lots of people to accompany him and spreading the model of the protest beyond the city and even beyond the country, and giving a name for a new form of protest. This very beautiful and moving case clearly states the discursive potency of the body and of its presence. Vulnerability. Opposed to immunity, vulnerability refers to the fact of being unable to withstand the effects of the environment. Vulnerability and the constitutive precarity of the individual could be milestones, or the milestones of a new politics based on the body. According to Judith Butler, vulnerability is a political modality of the human body that can provide the basis of sociality and of political life. It's a concept that allows us to think of ways of creating society that are not based on a contract, but that are based on the animal condition of the body that has so often been overlooked. Vulnerability in this sense is deeply connected to interdependence, being both concepts that serve to counteract our traditional our traditional political theory based on individualistic ideology. See in this glossary interdependence.
Play. The term game refers to a structure with concrete boundaries and rules. You can think about any board game, for example. In the opposite side, play has to do with a configuration with no defined rules or limits. Let's imagine a child playing with any object. Miguel Sicard, in his book, Play Matters, says, quote, play is disruptive as a consequence of being appropriate. When it takes over the context in which play takes place, it breaks the state of affairs. This is often done for the sake of laughter, for enjoyment, or passing pleasures. But like all other passing pleasures, play can also disruptively reveal our conventions, assumptions, prejudices, and dislikes. In disrupting the normal state of affairs by being playful, we can go beyond fun when we appropriate the context with the intention of playing with and within it. And in that move, we reveal the inner workings of the context that we inhabit. Ritual. According to Victor Turner, rituals are a means of generating and establishing community by way of the social bonds that the ritualistic experiences create. Peter Sellers links the applause with prayer. The act of joining both hands refers to the gesture of prayer. For both in prayer and in applause, a small unitarian and oratorical architecture, a body concentrated with an almost mystical energy.
The last one, quasi-object. Quasi-object is a term coined by the French philosopher Michel Serres. He describes it with the metaphor of ball games. He says that a ball, in the frame of the game, a ball lying on the floor alone is insignificant, it's dumb. Only a player can take it in her hands or in her feet and give it a role, a direction. In this sense, the ball is just an object, as it depends on the actions of the others to gain relevance and to fulfill its function. But the ball is also almost a subject in the sense that it leads to action. It brings the play into development. It creates agency among the players. A player that would retain the ball would be a bad one, because once the ball is in her hands, she has to decide to throw it in one or the other direction to one or the other player. But one of the most important things, this quasi-object generates not only action, but also a collective, he says. This collective is not based on the addition of previously defined individuals, but on their being part of the play. Briefly in a quotation, this quasi-object is an astonishing constructor of intersubjectivity. We know through it how and when we are subjects and how we are no longer subjects. We, what does it mean? We are precisely the fluctuating, moving back and forth of the eye. And now it's time for our experiments. How does it work? Here we have a clock with a countdown of these 28 minutes, summing up all the time we will be clapping in these 2 days. We will be together uploading for these 28 minutes. We start just as we are, seated, but of course you can sit or walk, you can stand, and you can move freely and act, of course, as you please. Are there any questions? It's easy.
Let's go for it.